So I have to say, coming into this week's episode of Attack on Titan, I was excited for it. I'm always excited for Attack on Titan. If you followed any of my videos, you know how much I love this series. But I wasn't necessarily like hyped up as I was for past episodes. Coming out of this episode, I am just completely impressed. Last week, I expressed my discomfort with how I felt with the second half with how Rod's Titan looked. It looked like a CGI worm, it didn't really look that great, it moved phenomenally, it added that creepy animation, but I didn't like how the second half of the episode looked for Rod. This episode, holy hell, Rod's Titan was amazing. 2D animation, the 3D looked great. They brought back in the scene that was cut from last week's episode, or at least appeared to be cut, with Eren trying to punch, in thin air, trying to stop Rod's Titan, but obviously not succeeding. Like last week's episode, I really don't have complaints anymore because of what we got with this week's episode. How they detailed Rod in both 2D and 3D was absolutely phenomenal. The camera work with how they were panning around in 3D, it was amazing. We were really getting into this, like how they were detailing this plan, which the plan's genius, right? They're just trying to shoot the nape as the best they can. Obviously, it's not going to succeed. It's just like a mismatched group of soldiers. They're not really experienced, but at least hopefully that will slow them down. And the whole plan is to essentially blow the hands off the wall, and then Eren in Titan form throw a bunch of barrels into his mouth, blow the living hell out of his head, and then the Survey Corps will kind of cut up the remaining pieces that explode in the air. Brilliant plan. Absolutely love it. Erwin didn't want to retreat because this Titan goes for large groups of people. It's a great plan, but honestly, this might be the creepiest Titan and the best detailed Titan we've seen with this week's episode. When you see his face blown apart, that's disturbing. And when you see him appear over the wall, mirroring what we saw in episode 1 with Eren, Armin, and Mikasa looking up at the Colossal, that's even more terrifying for the kids down below. Imagine just, you're 8 years old, you look up and you see shit like this. That's just this was so much better than the manga in terms of how Rod was coming out. The stuff with Rod was good in the manga, but I never was truly really disturbed by Rod, but the anime went a step above. I can understand maybe why last week in terms of the second half, there wasn't as much time and effort maybe put in. It was for this episode. This episode needed all the time and effort put into it, and it shows. There is detail there, and I absolutely love it. This is what I love about adaptations, is when you can have a medium really excel something. With Rod's Titan, just how he was crawling, how he was getting blown apart, the detail of actually seeing the cannon damage to his body. At first, it looks like it's doing nothing, but then you start to see holes on his body from where the cannons hit. And that's a nice touch. It's a little thing that, if you're really paying close attention, you're like, okay, you're actually seeing damage be done, but at the same time, there's nothing really happening here. This episode was most definitely an action-packed episode, but what it did really well is it subtly, layered in some stuff for future. When his story is flying around, obviously some weird shit's going on in her head, which was a nice touch. Kenny at the end of the episode showing hey, I got a Titan serum here, maybe I don't have to die, setting up next week phenomenally. But also Eren's stuff was actually pretty emotional. Eren is a guy, over 2 years he's had so much bad shit happen, so of course he's kind of depressed, he's kind of messed up because he convinced himself because he's a shifter, he's something special, but he's not something special. He's just someone who just so happened to get handed a great power and convinced himself he's the one who has to do everything, so when people died, that really got to him. But now he punched some sense into him and he's I'm trying to beat the shit out of the weakling inside me and rise to the occasion, stop trying to do everything by myself, understanding that other people are needed, some people are gonna die. It's a nice character development moment for Eren, and it really shows you how much he has grown if you compare him back to the first season, right? When the Colossal appeared again, he was trying to do everything himself. He's I'm gonna finally kill this Titan once and for all, and he fails. This time, it's not just him trying to take out Rod's Titan by himself. He works with people, there's development, there's growth. And Eren's voice actor in Japanese has always kicked so much ass, and it really shows in episodes like this when he's punching himself. Such a great moment, such a beautiful moment. But of course, everyone's going to be talking about just the directing and the animation, the 2D, the 3D, everything. I think most people are going to love how this episode looks. This episode it got me hyped, right? I'm just thinking to myself, I'm going into this episode being it's going to be a good episode. I know the content, I know how it's going to more or less look, and even if there's some bad 3D or just even bad 2D, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But pretty much minutes into this episode, I'm just thinking to myself, holy hell, Wit, this is way better than I was expecting, and I'm always expecting pretty solid stuff for Attack on Titan. This episode, the minor inconsistencies that are in this episode, they're just nothing, right? They're really nothing when you compare to how many good close-up and wider shots of this Titan and them fighting absolutely look. The explosion, the smoke, that's something I've always really liked, is you believe Attack on Titan's a real world because of how just devastating the impact of these Titans are. When steam's coming off and you see characters reacting and it actually feels holy hell, they might get burned here. they're dumping water so they can stop the burning. Like, there's so many moments that are just these little subtle details that build into making the Titans in this world feel real and believable, because characters aren't just standing still like a lot of anime and being like, oh, there's a big Titan here, let's kind of act surprised. No, you're like, these characters might get blown off the wall if they make the wrong move here. Such a great detail. The music was really solid here. The voice acting was solid. Like, for being such an action-driven episode, it actually did a surprising amount for just these subtle moments of building the future of this world. Historia kind of crashing down saying like, I'm the ruler of your walls here, after them seemingly thinking that she delivered the final blow. Really good move to maybe sell yourself as the future queen of these walls. All these characters, like, this is a great episode. Like, seriously, like, this blew my expectations out of the water. And, you know, I was taking a look at the Attack on Titan Reddit there, and, you know, the adaptation has been a hit or a miss for some people here. Some people, you know, wanting it to be exactly the same, and there were some scenes that were seemingly cut out that got brought back into this episode, and just, it seems like a lot of people are really happy with this episode overall. But yeah, great episode. I don't have too much more to say since it was more of an action thrilling episode, but seriously, a fantastic episode. I can't wait to see how that Kenny scene's gonna go down next week for the anime. Let me know what you're feeling. Your favorite moment, what did you think overall? How did you like the presentation of Rod's Titan? Did you find it better than last week, worse than last week? Whatever you're feeling, let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy the video, remember to leave a like, and if you're new, also be sure to subscribe. So until next time, everyone, please take care and have a good one.